What if one of the most iconic love stories in movie history got a second chapter? Picture this: Vivian and Edward, 35 years later, walking down Rodeo Drive again. But this time, it's not the fairy tale we remember. It's a new journey. One that could bring them back together or pull them even further apart. That's the dream Pretty Woman fans are holding on to right now, and Netflix might just be the one to make it real. The whispers are getting louder, the rumors are spreading faster, and suddenly, the possibility of Pretty Woman 2 is no longer just fan fiction, it's the talk of Hollywood. But before we dive into the sequel buzz, let's look back at why. This story refuses to fade from memory. When Pretty Woman hit theaters in 1990, it wasn't just another romantic comedy, it became a cultural phenomenon. The story of Vivian, a free-spirited woman with a complicated past, and Edward, a wealthy businessman who unexpectedly falls for her, broke away from the typical love stories of its time. Julia Roberts' charm and charisma lit up the screen, while Richard Gere's calm, understated presence created a perfect balance. Together, they didn't just act in a romance, they made audiences believe in it. The movie pulled in over $460 million worldwide, making it one of the highest-grossing romantic comedies of all time, and it earned Roberts an Oscar nomination. That would launch her into UPERSTAR. Oh God, it wasn't just the box office numbers that made Pretty Woman unforgettable, it was the magic between these two characters. Who could forget Vivian's confident walk down Rodeo Drive after being snubbed by store clerks? Or Edward's grand gesture at the end, climbing a fire escape to rescue her. These scenes didn't just entertain, they stayed in people's hearts for decades. Fans connected deeply with the film's central themes: love that defies expectations, second chances in life, and the idea that everyone deserves to be truly seen for who they are. Those themes have only grown more relevant in today's world, where people still crave stories about transformation and hope. Even after 35 years, the magic hasn't faded. You can still find Pretty Woman on streaming platforms, and it continues to pull in new audiences who weren't even born when it first came out. Its soundtrack, fashion moments, and memorable quotes have seeped into pop culture, referenced in everything from TV shows to music videos. In an era where old favorites are being revived left and right, Pretty Woman has remained one of the most requested films for a sequel. And Netflix knows that nostalgia sells, especially when it's tied to a romance that generations have grown up loving. This isn't just about bringing back an old movie for a quick profit, it's about tapping into an emotional connection that's been alive for decades. Fans don't just want to see Vivian and Edward again, they want to feel that spark, that belief in love, and that sense of joy that the original brought. It's the kind of emotional pull that streaming platforms dream of capturing, and Pretty Woman 2 could do exactly that. With the current wave of romantic reboots and the power of social media to generate instant hype, the timing couldn't be better. The big question now isn't if fans want it, it's whether the people behind the original magic are ready to return to the spotlight and tell the next chapter of this love story. The buzz about Pretty Woman 2 didn't start overnight. It began as a whisper, a casual comment here and there, until suddenly it felt like everyone was talking about it. The earliest spark came from nostalgic interviews over the years, where Julia Roberts and Richard Gere were often asked the same question: would you ever do a sequel? Their answers were always polite but vague, sometimes playful, sometimes dismissive. Roberts would joke about how Vivian might be running a business empire by now, while Gere once teased that Edward could be happily retired in Malibu. For years, these comments were just lighthearted fun, but fans stored them away like clues, waiting for the right moment to bring them up again. That moment arrived in the age of streaming, when Netflix started making headlines for reviving long-forgotten franchises. Think about it, if Netflix could reboot Gilmore Girls, give The Crown blockbuster treatment, and pour millions into romantic hits like Bridgerton, why couldn't they take on one of the most beloved rom-coms of all time? Then came the online sightings. Fans claimed to have spotted Julia Roberts leaving meetings at Netflix's Los Angeles office. Others swore they saw Richard Gere on set in a luxury hotel for an unannounced project. None of this was confirmed, but in the internet age, a grain of rumor grows into a mountain overnight. Fuel was added to the fire when a so-called leaked Netflix project slate began circulating on Reddit and Twitter. Buried between big-budget series announcements was a mysterious title, Pretty Woman, A Second Chance. No release date, no cast list, just the title. Whether it was real or a clever fake didn't matter. Within hours, entertainment blogs were running with the story. Headlines screamed that Netflix was in talks with the original stars, and fan accounts started posting dream posters and trailers. The online excitement was impossible to ignore. Then came the interviews that made fans lean in even closer. Julia Roberts appeared on a late-night talk show to promote another project, and when the host jokingly mentioned Pretty Woman 2, she smiled and said, "Well, never say never. Sometimes the right story just finds you." To longtime fans, that didn't sound like a hard no. It sounded like the kind of careful tease actors give when something might actually be in the works. Richard Gere, in his own press appearances, avoided the topic altogether, which of course only made people speculate more. Silence, after all, can be louder than words, adding to the intrigue. A veteran Hollywood costume designer who worked on the original film posted a throwback photo of Julia in the iconic red dress with the caption, "Some magic never fades? Can't wait for you to see what's next." The post was deleted within 24 hours, but screenshots had already gone viral. To fans, it felt like another breadcrumb leading toward something big. Even industry insiders began chiming in. Film analysts noted that Netflix has been actively chasing romantic IPs with built-in fan bases. They pointed out how a Pretty Woman sequel would appeal to both older viewers who saw the original in theaters and younger audiences discovering it for the first time online. And with Julia Roberts recently returning to romantic comedies after a long break, the timing seemed almost too perfect. Still, not everyone was convinced. Some argued that the rumors were just wishful thinking amplified by clickbait headlines. Others worried that a sequel could tarnish the legacy of the original. But whether people were excited or skeptical, one thing was clear: the conversation wasn't dying down. If anything, it was growing, and Netflix, a company that thrives on audience buzz, had every reason to keep the mystery alive. By the time entertainment journalists started writing everything we know about Pretty Woman 2 articles, despite the fact that nothing had been officially confirmed, the fandom had already built an entire imagined sequel in their heads. And once that kind of momentum takes hold, studios have a hard time ignoring it. Whether the rumors are based on truth or just a brilliant internet illusion, they've set the stage for what could be one of the most talked about revivals in streaming history. If Pretty Woman 2 really happens, the biggest question is, what story could possibly live up to the magic of the original? Fans have been imagining every kind of reunion for Vivian and Edward, and the possibilities range from heartwarming to bittersweet. One of the most popular theories is that the sequel would pick up decades later, showing the reality of what happens. After the fairy tale ending, did Vivian and Edward build a life together after that grand fire escape gesture? Or did life pull them in different directions? Some imagine they've been happily married, running a philanthropic empire, while others picture a more complicated history. Maybe they separated years ago, only to be brought back together by fate. A second chance at love storyline feels like the most natural fit. Think about it. Vivian, now a confident and successful woman in her own right, could have spent years carving her own path. Edward might be at a crossroads in his life, reevaluating what truly matters. A chance encounter, perhaps, at a charity gala or business event could reignite the connection they once had. But instead of retelling the same story, this chapter could explore the maturity and wisdom that come with age, as well as the vulnerability of admitting when you still care about someone after so much time apart. Another possibility that's been floated by fans is introducing a younger generation. Imagine Vivian and Edward having a daughter or son who's now navigating their own love life in a modern world. This could allow the film to blend nostalgia with fresh storytelling, giving longtime fans the familiar warmth of seeing the original couple, while also offering new viewers a romance they can relate to. A plot like this could show how Vivian's past experiences influence the advice she gives her child, and maybe how Edward struggles with letting go and trusting that love will find its own way. If Netflix wanted to give the film a modern twist, they could explore themes that reflect how relationships have changed since 1990. Back then, class differences and social expectations were a central conflict. Today, the barriers might look different: social media pressures, public image, and the speed at which relationships unfold in a hyper-connected world. Vivian, once judged for her background, could now be a mentor to young women facing their own challenges in a society that still makes snap judgments. Edward, once the powerful businessman, could be learning to adapt in a world where old corporate models are crumbling. There's also room for the story to reintroduce beloved side characters or even create new ones that carry a piece of the original's charm. Fans would love to see Kit, Vivian's outspoken best friend, return, perhaps thriving in her own unexpected career path. Hotel manager Barney Thompson could make an appearance, still offering sharp advice with a warm heart. And new characters could challenge or support Vivian and Edward's journey, adding fresh energy without overshadowing the leads. The tone of the sequel would be just as important as the plot. Should it keep the lighthearted, feel-good, romantic comedy vibe, or should it lean into a more emotionally layered dramedy? Many fans think a balance could work best, bringing back the humor, glamour, and optimism of the first film, while also showing that life and love in your 50s or 60s can be just as complicated, thrilling, and meaningful as in your 20s. There's a growing audience for love stories that prove romance doesn't expire with age, and Pretty Woman 2 could be a perfect vehicle for that message. And then there's the question of how the film would honor the original while standing on its own. The sequel could use subtle callbacks like a scene on Rodeo Drive, a nod to the famous bathtub sing-along, or even a reimagined version of the big mistake moment. But instead of simply recreating the past, these moments could show how the characters have grown and changed, making the nostalgia feel earned rather than forced. No matter which plot direction Netflix chooses, the emotional hook will always come back to Vivian and Edward's connection. Fans want to see that spark again, but they also want depth proof that this love, decades later, still matters. Whether it's about rekindling romance, building family bonds, or finding closure, Pretty Woman 2 has the potential to be more than just a sequel. It could be a story about how love evolves over a lifetime. Asterisk when it comes to Pretty Woman 2. Casting could make or break the entire project. No matter how good the script is, fans won't be fully on board unless Julia Roberts and Richard Gere return as Vivian and Edward. Their chemistry was the heartbeat of the original, and without them, the sequel would feel like an entirely different movie. The real magic lies in seeing these characters decades later, how they've aged, changed, and yet still carry the same spark that lit up Beverly Hills in 1990. Julia Roberts has recently shown she's open to romantic roles again, as seen in films like Ticket to Paradise, so the idea of her slipping back into Vivian's shoes doesn't feel impossible. As for Richard Gere, while he's been more selective in recent years, the emotional pull of revisiting one of his most iconic roles could be enough to bring him back. The supporting cast could also play a huge role in delivering that nostalgic hit. Fans would love to see Laura San Giacomo return as Kit DeLuca, Vivian's bold and unapologetic best friend. Kit's life could have gone in many directions. Maybe she's a successful entrepreneur, or perhaps she's stayed true to her free-spirited ways. Either path would give her plenty of opportunities for witty banter and heartfelt moments. Hector Elizondo, who played the endlessly charming hotel manager Barney Thompson, is another must-have. His warmth and wisdom added so much heart to the original film, and bringing him back could create some truly touching moments between old friends. Netflix also has the opportunity to introduce new faces who could carry the story forward. If the sequel involves a younger generation, casting a strong, up-and-coming actor or actress to play a child or protege of Vivian and Edward could bring fresh energy to the film. This younger role could become a bridge between the old and new audiences, ensuring the movie appeals not just to those who loved the 1990 original, but also to viewers discovering the story for the first time. Casting someone with undeniable charisma, similar to Roberts in her breakout days, would be key in pulling this off. The director's chair is another crucial decision. Gary Marshall, the beloved filmmaker behind Pretty Woman, passed away in 2016, so the sequel would need someone who could honor his style while adding a modern touch. Netflix could look to directors known for romantic storytelling with emotional depth. Someone like Nancy Meyers, Something's Gotta Give, The Holiday, who excels at mixing romance, humor, and sophisticated visuals, or even Richard Curtis, Love. Actually, Notting Hill, who knows how to craft love stories that feel timeless. A director with a knack for visual nostalgia and emotional storytelling would ensure the sequel feels like a natural continuation rather than a disconnected remake. Production design would also need to strike a careful balance between old and new. The original Pretty Woman was drenched in 90s glamour, from Beverly Hills luxury boutiques to the iconic Beverly Wilshire Hotel. In the sequel, Netflix could revisit these familiar locations, updated for the modern era while introducing fresh hand settings. Imagine Vivian and Edward walking past the same shops they visited decades earlier, only now the city is buzzing with smartphones, influencer culture, and a whole new kind of luxury. These details would not only ground the film in the present, but also deliver those nostalgic callbacks fans crave. Costume design would be equally significant. Vivian's fashion journey was one of the most memorable aspects of the original, from her bold streetwear to her elegant evening gowns. A sequel could mirror that transformation with modern style. Think couture gowns, tailored suits, and maybe even a clever nod to the original polka dot dress or red gown. In an era where fashion moments can dominate social media, the sequel's wardrobe could become a marketing asset in itself. Of course, Netflix's budget could give the production the scale it needs to feel big and cinematic, even if it premieres on a streaming platform. With Netflix's track record of filming in stunning locations around the world, the story could extend beyond Los Angeles, maybe to New York, Europe, or even a romantic setting tied to Vivian and Edward's past. A combination of nostalgia and global flair could make Pretty Woman 2 a visual treat while keeping the romance front and center. Ultimately, the casting and production choices will decide whether this film feels like a heartfelt continuation or a hollow cash grab. With Roberts and Gere leading the way, supported by familiar faces and a few fresh ones, guided by a director who understands the original soul, Netflix could create something that not only honors Pretty Woman's legacy, but also gives it a beautiful new chapter. And in Hollywood, that's the kind of second chance you don't pass up.